This video is brought to you by my parents, who loved and supported me my whole life. I miss you and I love you guys. But yeah, no, I have no sponsors, so don't worry. Anyways, I've got 3 words for you.
Transformers Galactic Trials.
This game came out way back in October of 2024. This video is a bit on the late side, but if you've been visiting my channel, you'll know that I've been playing it for a decent chunk of time. You know what this game is like? Any boomers out there remember the Simpsons episode where Homer Simpson grows a tomato/tobacco hybrid with some radioactive chemicals, calls it tobacco, and then Chief Wiggum and Ralph take a bite out of it and then talk about how horrible it is, and then they buy like a bushel of it? Yeah, that's Transformers Galactic Trials for me. It has been an up and down guilty pleasure of mine, and I felt so strong about it that I had to make this video because frankly, I want this game to succeed. So let's break it all down in my review of Transformers Galactic Trials for the PlayStation 5. Let's take a look at the basics of the game. The game is called Transformers Galactic Trials for a reason, and that reason is Galactic Trials can be shortened to GT. Guess what? It's a racing game. Essentially, it's a kart racing game that uses the Transformers IP, which means you get a chance to play as a bunch of your favorite Autobots or Decepticons as playable characters. You've got your regular kart racing drift mechanics, and you have a few racing modes like the basic Galactic Trial mode, where you play anywhere from 3, 5, or 7 races depending on your difficulty, the championship mode, where you can play one of 3 sets of racetracks, and then your basic quick match that allows you to play any track you want. The main gimmick that makes this one stand out from other racers is the combat zone, where you transform into your robot form and blast everything in your way. That's the crux of the entire game. You drive around, you jump into combat, you jump back into racing, and you do it all while trying to maintain first place. Speaking of the combat zone of the game, which makes it a little bit different than other kart racers, why don't we point out some of the other elements that make it different to, I don't know, let's say Mario Kart. Mario Kart is everyone's favorite racing game for some reason, even though these Sonic Kart racing games are better by a country mile. But seriously though, I love Mario Kart, it's fine. I mean, maybe not love, but anyways, Transformers. So in the game's HUD, you have a vitality meter, a shield meter, and an energon meter. These 3 meters combine to really make or break your race, because if your shield drops to 0 and your vitality drops to 0, then you've got to respawn. How does that drop to 0? Well, if you get hit by other racers, or if you bash into the walls, you're going to lose your shield and your vitality. Instead of collecting item boxes, you collect either vitality cubes on the racetrack to boost your health, or energon cubes to boost your energon meter, which we haven't really talked about, by the way. And I should mention, the energon meter is probably my favorite element of the entire game. You can replenish your energon levels in racing mode by drifting, getting airtime, or bashing fellow racers. In combat zones, blasting anything that moves will do the same thing. And I know I haven't told you what energon does yet, so what does it do? Did I say it can make or break your race? Did I use that already? But it's true, it can make or break your race. In racing mode, energon is your boost mechanic. Long gone are the days of Mario Kart drifting, where that's how you boost through the game. In this case, you can boost whenever the hell you want, as long as you have charged up enough energon. And then when you're in combat modes, guess what? Energon does a different thing entirely. A full energon meter in a combat zone will allow you to use your special weapon. So think of it like a super move. Each bot has 2 different super moves they can choose from. Only one can be used in any given galactic trial, but they're a neat little spectacle in most cases. And speaking of weapons, you actually have a weapon during the combat zones that isn't just your special weapon. You pick this gun before your galactic trial begins, and you're basically stuck with it for the rest of the races. However, you have a range of choices, like long-range rifles, grenade launchers, machine guns, and so on and so forth. These are unlocked if you want more in the galactic trial gameplay mode exclusively. Speaking of galactic trials and unlocking things, you can also unlock relics. So these relics are meant to give you some sort of boost to your stats, and these are temporary boosts that you can use during the trials itself. You can only hold 3 of them during a race, but you have a lot to choose from. So you build up your inventory over time after you win more and more galactic trials. These give you power-ups such as increases to stats like speed, or handling, giving you extra shield, extra vitality, and so on and so forth. You can actually unlock Nemesis Prime if you collect 10 of the rarest relics in the game. I'd start my complaints right here. That's it. That's all there is to the game. You've got local multiplayer, which is rare in this day and age, but this is essentially a one-player racing game with very little depth. So let's jump into the problems with the gameplay, because that's always fun, right? Gameplay modes are super limited. The only real way to play this game is in the Galactic Trial mode. The Championship mode lets you play one of 3 sets of levels. Those are the Velocitron, Cybertron, or Sea of Rust levels, but you don't earn any unlockables that way. Sure, you'll be able to plug away at some of the bots you can unlock, because those require certain thresholds to be met. If you're not in the Galactic Trial mode, you're really just wasting your time. One big reason why I say this is because of difficulty. If you're not playing a Galactic Trial, the game simply isn't hard. For example, let's look at the highest difficulty level in the game, Prime mode. Actually, before we mention that, the names for the difficulties are kinda weird. Easy is Rookie, that makes sense. Normal mode is called Expert mode, which is what I would expect hard mode to be called. Hard mode is called Prime mode. That makes sense considering the franchise, but calling normal expert is weird. It's like I walked into a Transformers themed Starbucks and don't know how to pick the proper cup size because I just want a regular, but they call it some weird name like Grande or Venti or whatever. And with all these naming conventions, I honestly feel like 3 difficulty levels just aren't comprehensive enough. Rookie and Expert seem extremely close to one another in difficulty. They could have squeezed in one more level and did a Rookie, Normal, Expert, and then the unlockable Prime difficulty. Prime difficulty in Championship mode allows you to pick any of your unlocked relics at the start of the match. And this doesn't sound like a big deal, but if you've got the really good relics, this is going to bring the difficulty all the way down to Rookie. You can pick the best relics from your entire inventory to start off the game, and you're always at your best during every single race. The difference in Galactic Trial mode is that you only start with 1 of 3 randomized relics, and you have to choose 1 more with every win. That means you can't guarantee the best possible stats to make your matches easy. Not only that, the bots seem a lot more challenging in the Galactic Trial versus the championships, partly because the longest championship is 4 races, but the GT is 7. I kind of touched on this before. You also don't earn relics or weapons unless you play a Galactic Trial. Speaking of unlocking things, it's both a blessing and a curse with this game. I'm so glad to know that there's no paid DLC in the game. Everything that you have in the game is unlockable to regular gameplay. The biggest downside to all of this stuff is threefold. The first problem is, like I just said, the Galactic Trial is the only gameplay mode that lets you unlock relics and weapons. What makes that so frustrating is that new weapons can be used during a GT before you unlock them, kind of like a trial mode, but to permanently unlock the weapon, you need to meet certain criteria, kind of like unlocking a bot. For example, one weapon might require you defeat 10 Autobots, or take down 20 drones, and so on and so forth. This leads into the second problem though, because this is all randomized. Like honestly, unlocking wouldn't be a problem if the entire process weren't so random. You may or may not get the opportunity to use a new weapon after each race. When you can choose a new relic, that's when you pick a new weapon if it shows up. There's nothing more annoying than picking a weapon that requires you to, for example, take down 10 Autobots, and then the next race is going to be a 1 versus 1 against Nemesis Prime. And you don't even know if it's going to be a Nemesis Prime match until after you pick the relic. So it's just a complete gamble of your time. Not only that, but you might be required to, let's say, defeat Megatron, but if you haven't been paying attention to the other racers on the track with you during your GT, you might not even know if Megatron is even in the list of 6 players. Only 6 bots are on the racetrack at any given time, and if there's no list to remind you of who is and isn't in the race, then you're also wasting your time there too. The third problem is that the different weapons are pretty boring and makes the gameplay a bit stale. I mean, if all the bots get to choose from the same weapon pool, then it makes the bot selection process a bit less unique. I can always pick pick the rail rifle for any bot. And when I enter a combat zone, that's mostly all I'm going to use. It's all going to be the same, and there won't be any difference between Bumblebee versus Nemesis Prime. Why not handle the weapon selection in Galactic Trial mode the same way that relics are handled? Give me an option of 3 at the start of a loadout and let the chips fall where they may, instead of making it so random. Something connected to this idea is unlocking the various bots in the game. In order to unlock some bots, you need to beat Galactic Trials under certain conditions. For example, Nightbird can only be unlocked if you beat the GT with Megatron on the highest difficulty. Cool, I'm down for that, but the problem is that there aren't enough of these kind of challenges in the game. If I want to unlock everything in the game, then I have to max out Megatron at the very least and beat the game on Prime with him. But what about Nightbird? What happens when I unlock her? What benefits do I gain after I unlock? The game offers no rewards, no unlockables, and no trophies if I try to max out her character. What else is a gripe in this game? I have to come back to the amount of content. You have 10 total tracks, split across 3 major themes: Velocitron, Cybertron, and Sea of Rust. 10 levels isn't half bad, but I have 2 major issues with them. Issue number 1, they're not uniform. What I mean by that is, there are some levels that have 3 total laps, others with 2 total laps, and others again with simply 1 trip around the track. This is a double-edged sword. I honestly enjoy the fact that there are some tracks that don't give you a chance to learn any patterns to beat the tracks, but it also makes them uneven. The coolest thing about tracks with 3 total laps is that each lap will change from one to another anyways. The track will alter to keep you on your toes. Acid Swamp is probably the best example of this in the game. And problem number 2, they're actually too uniform. That might sound like a contradiction, but I assure you it's not. Every track from the Sea of Rust looks like it could be the same level. Despite there being 10 tracks, sometimes it feels like there's only 3. That makes replaying the Galactic Trials a slog sometimes. You might find yourself playing Acid Swamp followed by the Factory and thinking, wait, didn't I just play this track? Also, don't get me started on the names of the tracks. Some are original, but it was like they started to phone it in after about 3 names. One level is just called the Factory, and another is called Markets. Like, what the fuck kind of names are those? Another issue is the combat zone part of the game. And don't get me wrong, transforming into your robot mode is a lot of fun. On paper, this devolves into a slog very quickly. You can only shoot in front of you, and your targeting system isn't always accurate. You can carry a bit of momentum when you first enter the combat zone, but it disappears super fast, with no good way of bringing your speed back up. You have one option to perform a short boost that increases movement speed. It doesn't do all that much. You have no way of blocking, dodging, or parrying gunfire, and all of your enemies are brainless troopers, drones, or turrets. What else? Oh yeah, bouncing on launch pads leads to some annoying floaty mechanics that make it hard for you to know where you're gonna land when all's said and done. A lot of races can be lost by simply miscalculating where the next launch pad actually is. By the way, you also can't jump on your own for that matter. And I have a small complaint to add here about level design. In Grand Prix, after you exit one particular combat zone, you're launched into your alt mode, and for some stupid ass reason, they put a stupid fucking pipe in the middle of the entrance to the track. Like, if you get too much airtime or try to land in the center of the track, you'll bump right into it. Like, who the fuck decided to put this thing here? Okay, anyways, that just got me really mad. Most people will probably complain about bugs. Are there bugs? Yes, of course there are bugs. The devs probably knew these bugs were there because they even put a button into the game that lets you respawn at will. Why would they need that? Unless, of course, they were expecting you to need to respawn frequently enough to devote a button on your controller for it. I think the worst bug I personally encountered was when I fell off a racetrack and spawned not back on the track, but into this weird little box below or near the track. I don't know where I was. Even when I pressed the respawn button, all it did was send me back to that weird little box. It would just bring me again and again to the same stupid thing. I called it the garage. And the funny thing is, even with that significant delay in time, the AI sucks so hard that I still came in first place. So, I mean, yeah. That tells you something, I guess. Other things that will really frustrate you will probably be related to the combat zone. The racing elements in your alternative mode or alt mode are pretty tight, but the combat zone will have you being thrown around and flung into places you never planned to go at the worst possible moments. However, from my experience, all of those bugs occurred in about the first week or so of gameplay. Since then, in the 20 some odd hours I've dumped into this game, I haven't encountered any other bugs. If I'm being honest, they're not really that bad. They're no more frustrating than getting hit by a, I don't know, red shell in, let's say, Mario Kart. One more gripe, the story is a bit lacking. As far as the premise is concerned, I'm not all that bothered. Apart from the opening cinematic and ending cinematic, there's nothing else there. Why not make some kind of story mode or just tack on some unique character openings and closings once they win a match? If there are levels in the Galactic Trial where you specifically face Nemesis Prime 1v1, then, you know, give me some kind of story-based reasoning for that. I mean, just do something other than the bare minimum. It's bad enough that the cinematics are just 2D panels. Oh my goodness. So we've gone over a lot of the problems of the game, but what does the game get right? Is Transformers Galactic Trials salvageable? I absolutely think so. The game's audio ranges from basic to impressive. This includes both the game's soundtrack, but also the voiceover cast. There are some excellent sound-alikes in the game that actually had me convinced they were the original Transformers voice cast. Optimus Prime sounds a bit like we have Optimus Prime at home.
Optimus Prime ascended to greatness.
But Soundwave, and especially Megatron, had me convinced for most of the game that they were actually Frank Welker, the original voice actor. I had to read through the endgame credits just to confirm it wasn't him.
Megatron at maximum! Full power! There is no strength greater than my desire for conquest!
So, the voice actors do a really great job with the material. They just need some more material. Some levels also have some banger music. More on Kaon and Markets are standouts for me, but I will admit that the music does blend together sometimes if you're not paying attention. On top of the game's audio, the Transformers roster is nice and balanced. Unfortunately, there is no Hot Rod in a racing game, and there are no aerial Transformers in the game at all. Shout out to Starscream and Jetfire. Megatron is a tank, not a gun, and Shockwave is a hovercraft, not a gun. I mean, I don't know how, but the gun Transformers somehow made the cut. But you've also got bots you wouldn't really normally think about, like Flame War and Nightbird are in the mix. They really balance the roster between old and new Transformers. And when I say new, I mean newer than the OG series in the 80s. Those of you that live under a rock. Or, you know, don't read the comics. The character designs can be described as pretty, albeit simple. All the bots, despite bashing each other and driving through all kinds of rusty-ass levels with acid and lasers bombarding them, still look as pristine and polished as the day they rolled out of their robot mother's vagina, or whatever it is, however Transformers make babies. There's no visible damage on their chassis, which would have bumped the visuals up by quite a lot. Each bot has 3 color palettes to choose from. Some are honestly pretty snazzy. The fact that everyone has a prestige paint job is cool, although making them all gold was definitely a choice. And the real major standout for me in this game is the boost mechanic. I must say, we've all played kart racers, Mario Kart, that force you to drift in order to boost, Mario Kart. How many kart racers let you boost whenever you want to? I love the idea of drifting to charge your energon in order to boost whenever you wanted to later on. It's not often that you have a game that doesn't copy Mario Kart with its item and drifting mechanics. Admittedly, they need to figure out a better weapon system than their current solution, but they're trying to be different, which is commendable. I'm a person that says a game's plot just has to have a simple premise, something to get the gameplay off the ground. It doesn't have to carry the game. It definitely can, but it doesn't have to. I think this game has what it needs to be successful in that regard. If they could infuse something more into it, then you've got an even better package. A story per Autobot, a story per Decepticon, an ending for each character. Those would be great. Those are nice to haves. If I'm being honest with myself here, I'm making this video because I'm looking to the future with this game. In a month where I've been playing hours and hours of Astrobot and Shadow Generations, I ended up coming back to Transformers Galactic Trials again and again. This isn't so much a review of the game as it is a plea to all of you to try the game out. And maybe, just maybe, they'll make a sequel that will fix a lot of the shortcomings in this game. So let's talk about something else. Let's talk about what's missing in this game that would make a sequel to Transformers Galactic Trials even better. Here's my list. 1. The difficulties. Make 2 or 3 basic difficulties, each ramping up the game's difficulty without being too easy. A hidden final difficulty, akin to maybe a hardcore mode, would also be welcome for more veteran kart players. Number 2. Unlockables. The game's unlockables are very uneven. They need tweaking. All of the unlockables need adjusting so that I can work towards unlockables in every gameplay mode in the game. Championship mode should have special unlockables. Galactic Trial mode, special unlockables. If those aren't there, then I'm not going to try the different game modes. It's like kind of a waste of time. Or at the very least, if nothing else changes, we need to be able to see the next race before deciding on which weapon we want to use. So we know if the criteria to unlock the weapon is even available to us. In that same vein, attach either trophies or achievements or gameplay bonuses to incentivize unlocking bots, leveling them up, or any other kind of progression in the game. Spread these out evenly across the duration of the game, and you have a much more balanced experience. Number 3, I'd say time trials. Just put time trials. That's about it. Maybe the combat zone made this more of a challenge, but it doesn't seem that hard to figure out and just kind of tack on. Even a mirror mode would be nice. Number 4, don't add multiplayer. I know this might be a weird thing to say don't do. Something tells me that this is going to be a very budget-friendly game. Multiplayer will probably cripple outright games financially. I don't know if that's true or not, but something tells me this is going to ramp up the cost of the game and could lead to an eventual collapse and shutdown later on in the game's life cycle. So just keep it local multiplayer. It's fine. Number 5, combat zones. The combat zone was a nice first draft. It just needs some more. Enemies need better AI and variety. You need to be able to jump, for God's sake. Allow us to shoot behind us. Even if it's just blind shooting, it'd be better than like what you have now. Add a shield or counters to help with gunfire or something to spice up the zone. Parries would be pretty cool. What if it's not linear as well? What if it's some kind of arena where you have to kill X amount of people before you can progress or something like that? I don't know. Number 6, the weapon system. If you make weapons reliant on the bot class or maybe a special set of weapons just for each single bot, so, you know, Megatron has a special set of guns separate from Optimus Prime. That would be cool. Like maybe even melee bots that are strictly melee versus bots very good at long range. I don't know, but make different classes have different weapons. That would be a great addition. Number 7, I'd say level design. So keep these levels. You've already made them, but add more variety to the levels. What do I mean by that? Don't stick to 3 basic themes of levels. Go for all kinds of crazy balls to the wall levels where the design is just totally interesting and unique. You don't have to have 3 categories with only 3 color palettes where you're stuck playing the same levels again and again and again. I mean, hell, even if you did a mirror mode where you did a palette swap in the colors, I mean, that would be plenty. Then you'd have 20 levels. So, I mean, do something. Do something with the levels. Make them different. Make them look different than each other. Roster expansion, definitely. You've already made these bots. They're cool, but where's Hot Rod? I mean, it's rare for us to want Hot Rod, but this is a car racing game. Bring Hot Rod into the game, right? This will be super difficult, but maybe it's got some precedent as well. Bring in some aerial combat. Bring in some aerial bots. Let us fly. Let us use boats if there are boat bots you can think of. Some sort of alt mode where they can transform into a boat, car, and plane. I'm just thinking out loud because I know that Sonic and Sega All-Stars Racing Transformed was such a great game, and I'd love to see other people try to model that game. Even Team Sonic Racing stopped doing it. I don't know why, but the 3 different modes of gameplay are a great idea for a kart racing game. Transformers has those bots. You can have at least jets like Jetfire, Starscream, and you have an aerial experience. Please consider that. Maybe not even for Galactic Trials 2, maybe Galactic Trials 3. But anyways, how about number 9, story? Just a wee bit more story story would be appreciated. Even if you can pull off something like the old fighting games like Street Fighter, they give you a crappy mini ending for each Autobot or Decepticon. Wouldn't it be awesome to see Megatron win the Galactic Trials and then conquer the universe or something weird like that? I'd be down for that kind of story. Next, number 10, the price. I haven't talked about this at all yet, but this is probably the best selling point for the entire game. It's not a full price title, and that might be why I have enjoyed it as much as I have. It's a budget title that doesn't try to do too much, but honestly feels like it's on the cusp of something great. If they can maintain that price point, tack on a few additional elements, then you'll have a quality title. I mean, honestly, how can you complain about getting half a game at half the price? I'm in Canada and I buy mostly Sony console games, so I'm paying $100 for those things in most cases. Getting a game for $50 that is missing a lot of content isn't half bad. I've been psychologically conditioned to think that that's okay. I've played this game on my own for like 20 hours. It's a decent value. I don't feel scammed for ordering it early, and if you get this game on sale, it's an absolute bargain. Kudos to Outright Games for doing that, at the very least. I think I've said my piece. This is my first experience with Outright Games, and while it was a bit of a roller coaster, like I said, with ups and downs and ups and a few more downs, I'm pleasantly surprised with the game. You might try it and like it, and while I get that it's not for everyone, I think there's potential here. If Outright Games sees this and they're not just a conduit for IP shovelware, then I'd love to see them succeed with this game and put out a second one. I don't have a rating system, but I mean, maybe I'd give this game a, I don't know, 10 out of 10? No? 7 out of 10? Nah, who gives a shit? Do you like Transformers? Do you like kart racing? Do you like saving money? Well, then you'll probably find something to like in Transformers Galactic Trials. Okay, bye. Thanks for watching, guys. I hope that you enjoyed the video, but on top of that, if you have played Transformers Galactic Trials already, you know the game, you played it. If it sucks, if you love it, let me know in the comments. I love reading the comments and hearing what you think, and I just hope you enjoyed the video. If you like it, I make videos all the time, so be sure to check me out if you like this stuff, and hopefully I can make more of these videos. So, yeah, I mean, I love when you watch the videos. It makes me happy. So thank you so much. I love making them. I hope you love watching them. Okay, all the best, everyone. Take it easy, and let me know what you think of Transformers Galactic Trials on Steam, PS5, PS4, Xbox, I don't know, a fridge, kind of like Skyrim. It's everywhere, right? Okay. All right, bye.